Have you ever been promised that big promotion at work just to get told it's no longer available? How about that big pay raise they promised you just to be left high and dry, waiting for what seems like forever? I know I have, and so is the OP in today's ProRevenge story. Except, unlike me, OP had the cojones to actually do something about it. Takes place back in 2014. Long read with a lot of build up to revenge. I was about a year into my job and was being recognized for my talents and promoted pretty regularly. I was constantly being used as the liaison between my company and the client companies we had business and contracts with, and literally have saved our contract companies hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then I was approached by Amy, who was in another department, for a job opportunity in the next month or so. She was going out on medical leave and was going to train me to take over her position in the interim, and then fully take it over once she came back and moved into a new role. I was ecstatic because I knew she had a salaried position, and that's what I really wanted. Most of the salaried positions in the company were the kind where you had direct reports, and in my industry there is a lot of stupid and handholding, so I was not looking forward to having to deal with that stuff. But here was this angel offering me the salary position I wanted and the stepping stone I wanted to get further in the company, all without having to deal with stupidity on a daily basis. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm pulled from my current duties about twice a week to train in her position. In the beginning, it was really menial stuff to get acquainted with her department. But then we started getting into the bigger Excel stuff. Now her job was 90% Excel based, but in having her teach me her job and the duties and deadlines for certain things, I realized she was basically flying by with basic Excel knowledge. I'm talking formulas to do math, and VLOOKUPs were the majority of what she used in everything. Now I was really okay with it, and I knew I could bring a lot more to the position with my knowledge, and could really help out the management team and showcase my expertise to them. So she goes out on leave, and I take over her position with no problem. I automate a lot of her duties during that time, and implement a lot of new processes that optimized a lot of what she was doing. I find I have a lot of free time though, because I was better at Excel. Something that took her 2 hours took me 15 minutes. So I started taking some online learning courses my company offered in preparation of taking over the salaried position fully. She comes back from leave a few weeks later, and this is when I start to realize I've been bamboozled. Amy officially starts her new role, head of quality assurance, and I continue what I'm doing, with basically no feedback from her. About a week after she comes back, I get called into her office, and I'm basically told that the company is restructuring some positions, and the position she used to hold is no longer available, so no salary is promised. I'm disheartened by that, but she says she could get me at least a raise on my hourly rate, and I can keep doing what I'm doing 4 days a week, and for the 5th day I have to do the same duties as the lowest folk on the totem pole. So no salaried position. I get to do all her old work for the promise of more pay, and I'm essentially starting at the bottom again at her department. I really needed a job at this point, so I went with it, and for the next 2 months I do my job even better than before, thinking at least the higher ups will see my work ethic and performance, and rewards will eventually come. I mean, I'm doing double of what Amy used to do, and sending her everything she requests from management, and I'm ranked the top man of the low totem pole workers. We get a new big boss soon, who is still the most amazing boss I've ever had, and she sees what I've been doing. She makes it a point to get to know all her staff, so she starts inviting me to the management meetings to see exactly what they needed of me. Well, in that first meeting, I find out that 90% of the management staff had no idea I was the one completing the duties and reports they were getting, and really had no idea what my job was. Amy had been pawning off my work as her own, and she was getting praise from them for being so great, and essentially doing 2 jobs. I was livid, but again, I really needed this job. So I held my composure and just generally made myself available to the other management staff for whatever they needed. I cut Amy out of it. Well, that went well for a while. I was being appreciated and celebrated for my work. I was getting more duties that were really freeing up some time for the upper management to focus on getting results from their teams. And I didn't have to deal with Amy much anymore. I was getting ingrained with the new client as well. So much so that they always reached out to me personally when an investigation needed to be done, or a high-value customer needed to be reached out to. It felt as if I was really fully in this role now and was back on the path to promotion. The only thing missing was the money for the work I was doing. I was making the same and sometimes less money as the low folk in the totem pole when I was really starting to do managerial work. So I brought up my pay raise to Amy, and she said she would quote-unquote look into it. 2 weeks go by, and she advises that the company would not approve my pay raise as I was not technically in a position that warranted it. I was coded as a low man still. Something didn't feel right about that. So I went above her and brought it to the big boss. She was more than happy to see what kind of increase she could get me, and told me that Amy had never even come to her to get the approval process started for my raise. So this was like the third time Amy had lied to me. Not only that, the other managers started coming to me with requests for work that Amy used to do. Only she never trained me on these things and wasn't doing them herself, so some things were not getting done. I sucked it up and went to her about the request, but she said she would handle them. She still didn't want to give me all the tools to the castle to be able to do her old job fully. But again, I was smarter than her with Excel, so I watched her folders closely for the completed information and basically backtracked the process to learn how to do it. I was getting pretty fed up at that point, but Big Boss was working on my raise and getting me back pay for the time I had been doing the work, so I stuck with it and avoided Amy as much as possible. Amy also had me start doing some stuff for her and her new department. I had built so many things into our repository and access programs that some things could no longer function without me as no one else knew how to run them. And through what I was doing for her, I learned her team was failing to meet their numbers and was just not providing the work they should have. About this time, the client started to realize the same thing, thanks much in part to some reports Amy had me doing for her and sending to the clients. I realized looking back at older reports that she had been cooking the numbers essentially, and it looked as if our department as a whole took a steep dive when I took over. But my numbers were just telling the truth. So the client reached out to me in regards to that. So I explained my practice in full, and the client realized that I was giving an accurate portrait of how things were. I also learned during that client meeting that the head of the quality assurance department was expected to have almost a mastery level knowledge of the client and their processes. It clicked shortly after that Amy had never been properly trained on the client material. I had went through 4 weeks of client training when I moved over, but Amy went right from her previous offline role, where there was no real knowledge for the client and their tools, to the quality assurance role. Oh, now I had her. I spent the next week compiling all the instances of Amy reaching out to me for client knowledge and the timelines of her promotion, and then I put the bug in the client's ear. The very next day, a meeting was called by the client with all the heads of our department and Amy. It started with the client probing her about things she should know if she had been trained, and then ended with the slow realization that Amy was in deep doo-doo because she knew nothing. By the end of the meeting, Amy was to be immediately removed from her position and to have nothing to do with our client moving forward. And the client name-dropped me specifically to help with her department in the transition. So this woman who had lied to me to get me to do her job, took all the credit for my work for a time, lied about a raise, and was just generally not the best manager, was about to lose her job. I was in heaven. But then she weaseled her way into another role as a frontline manager in another department in my company. And based on her previous role, they were happy to have her come help them with this brand new account. So she was taking a position downgrade, got to keep being employed, and her pay stayed the same. Oh, this would not stand. As I mentioned, she is not a nice manager, and she previously cooked the books in her old role, so I knew she wouldn't miss the opportunity to do the same in her new role. So I waited, and I watched, and I collected first-hand accounts from people she was managing. And a little over 2 months into her new role, I dropped the biggest bomb of information on HR they had ever seen. Every single member of her team had numerous personal interactions with her that were unbecoming of a manager, and nearly every report she touched was wrong in some way. She had actually screwed up their efficiency report so bad for those 2 months that it appeared the account was doing so well in efficiency but losing money on the profitability side, that it had management stumped. I got to expose her as an Excel fraud with this mishap. She cost the account thousands. Her team hated her and put in a plethora of complaints against her. And my accurate reports showed how crappy her team was doing under her management. She was let go within 2 hours of my HR bomb. And in the end, Big Boss was able to get me my raise, and then some, and back pay of nearly a year. And my skills and hard work were noticed by all, and I was in line for a promotion. I have been in the promoted role for a year now. Lie to me, steal my work, lie to the client and management, and I will make sure 2 Fortune 500 companies will never let you near them with a 10-foot pole. And your reputation is ruined in our town and industry. I saw her working at Target a few months ago. Best satisfaction ever. Ooh, how satisfying was that story, guys? That sucks for that manager, but that's what she gets. What do you think about this revenge? You think OP could have done more? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.